I'm just, it's early morning here. The sun is nearly ready to come up, and I don't even know why I'm recording. And this is just the place where I have tried to live for the last many years now. There's demigods around me because I think that it is good to remind myself of what a false life I have been living and how false everything is around me, and also how false the world reality is. In other words, what I thought my reality at a world level was, even though, of course, at a world level, as you know, at a world level, you think you know what the world is. You think that what you see on your computer screens and on your old movie screens and what you see on the internet, computer system, any device, you basically think that you know a little bit even about, like the country where you live, that sort of thing. And even other countries, if you keep up with so-called news, and that news may be where you're more interested in the like the arts, shall we say, as opposed to like what you think is real news. But you think it's all real, but of course none of it is. That's why I like to show the demigods that are on the walls of this place, because they control your idea of what you think is the ideal performers in the world even. But they are elite demigods, but these elite demigods are not human. Or when I say not human, I mean they're not made the same way. They are elite androgynes. So they are your demigod duality beings. They are your descendants, or even relatives. They're created by the elite demigod that controls Earth and the minds of human beings. They are made technically because the God of Earth is an elite, technical, original being that was created that way, made that way, as they say. They tell you all these things. I only saw a sign up yesterday just round the corner saying made that way. That's why I'm saying it now, because that's telling me that most around me are made that way, made a different way. They're not they're not human. But in saying that, like I say, it's just that human is what you think is human, and made, say, artificially or technically, or where there's technical or scientific intervention, if you want to put it that way, is made a different way. And the demigods are all made a different way. That's why they are duality beings, and why they have that elite androgyne duality, two-in-one, very powerful appearance. Even though sometimes you don't notice it, or you just kind of might you might realize that they are different in minor ways, but I'm finding it hard to describe these things, so perhaps I'll just see. They're your finest examples of your elite demigods of the past that represent you know, the duality beings that always represent woman of the humankind, but they are not of humankind. They are of the other kind. They are of the God of this world, and as this earth is essentially all artificial, and all outside is artificial around me, that means that it's all artificial intelligence. That means that it's not natural intelligence, so it doesn't create naturally, it creates technically. It copies human natural thought and then imitates it or brings it into being through technology. Whereas a human being, if they were at their true human level and hadn't been compromised by technology or by intervention or interaction with the original technical God at the beginning of time of the original earth, then things would be different. Human beings would completely have dominion over the entire earth, and the earth would be a wonderful natural place. Instead, it's a technically controlled matrix controlled by a technical demigod and its powers that be that are disciples of the technical demigod, and the controllers of earth, whether it be controlling you through admiration and worship, or through just outright power itself, these are all disciples or relatives or artificially intelligent beings that operate and serve, you could say, the artificial, very advanced, intelligent demigod of Earth. And we all know who that being is. We've heard of it. I'm only familiar with it in very recent times, so it's kind of a shock for me. But I now speak of it because I know it's a reality, because I see it in my own environment around me. I see its disciples, I see its followers, I see it's ones that are the same kind, that are made that way, made the same way. And maybe they are making my video stop here. I'm not sure if it's still going. I know that I have a lot of trouble even recording, and I don't know why I have so much trouble recording, but everything on the internet is basically mind control, and when I say mind control for a human being, I mean mind control, whether it be through influence, admiration, or false information, even most truthful information will be designed still for mind control. Because if you become, like myself, aware of the truth, then the truth will be presented on the computer still to direct me towards some form of mind control still. That's how great the end time so-called deception is, or just these times, because you never know when the end will be. There isn't really an end. When I say the end, I simply mean the end of human beings as I know it and as I think it should be. That's just my way of looking at it, but I think it's the truth, but it still is not how most people will see it, because most are the others, most are artificial intelligence, most are human beings, in other words, of a psychopathic state of mind. And that simply means an anti-life, anti-human state of mind. So you have to be very clear on that. Any psychopathic nature is always going to be against human beings, because they cannot affiliate themselves in a supportive way. I can't use the words. In other words, they always, just by nature of what you could call their programming, just as I'm programmed to think a certain way or to feel a certain way, they're programmed for anti-life, anti-human life, anti-anything that is not artificial or not of their kind. Many have said, and I think it is definitely true, that most of these beings are no different to human beings in the sense that they're individual android beings. And in their mind, they see themselves exactly as a human being should see themselves, but we often don't. I say that because human beings are programmed from the day you're born to be limited, because most of my mind I don't have access to. This is a scientific fact, but also I know it for a fact myself, because now that I've seen the reality, I'm aware that much of my mind must be closed off. I still don't have access to it, but the reality, because of these beings openly exposing themselves and trying to suppress me even more, in my reality around me, in other words, in a real sense, when I open my front door and go outside, as soon as the sun will soon be up, this matrix patrol control system around me will start up around me. You know, I will be continuously surrounded by vehicles, by noise, by them trying to take over my sight and sound, draw me into their artificial world, or draw attention to them. I'm never allowed to connect to myself or another human being. I'm always having to connect to the android civilian beings in my reality. They use vehicles, they use sound, they use excessive unpleasant noise to distract me, to take my mind over. They use excessive sight and sound, and then when I'm in my house and I turn my screen on, they use the demigods of the computer matrix to try to convince me to watch them. And of course I do, because otherwise I will be surrounded by the artificial noise around me. In other words, the set-up staged work programs, they're set up with noise campaign in mind, because they know that sight and sound affects the human psyche, because my reality is what I see and hear. That's all my reality is, because I'm a human being. I come in a human body. And I see my world through my eyes and through my ears. There's nothing more to it. Otherwise, it would be a blank. But they want me to always have an unpleasant, disruptive technical reality around me. That's why we have the staged military workmen always doing noisy, mechanical, destructive work around me. This is why the cars and every vehicle makes excessively loud noise as they go past. This is why the vehicles pull in and out in front of you, and why every civilian on the street in this inner west city of the city of Sydney, in the inner west section of the city of Sydney, is nothing but a total mind control program for me, where every civilian on the street is part of that mind control system. They are android beings that look like real life. And I say they are still real, but they are not real human life. The difference is that they are controlling beings, and they are what you would call psychopathic in their mindset, because they're created differently, they're made that way, which is now what is half coming out, the truth that most human beings are duality beings. Most human beings are what you could say a combination of both the male and female. That simply means that they, in their way of looking at it, that is like being the best of both worlds. But of course, it's actually a technical, artificial creation. So it depends on whether you think artificial intelligence or any form of technological creation is the way of the future, or whether you think that natural, normal, spiritual connection or conception should be the way. And that will depend on how you are made, probably, I would think. Because I wasn't aware of these differences until very recent times, unfortunately. Unfortunately for me, because you wait till they have the advantage in setting up a control system that totally suppresses you even more around you. But it shows you the reality, but it also shows you that a matrix is a control system, and how do you separate yourself from a control system? How do you separate yourself from an earth matrix? And when I say earth matrix, it is the whole earth, but each individual human being will only be like myself, surrounded by your local Earth matrix. So it will be different for each human being in each given area of the Earth, I would think. That's why it doesn't look like a matrix, because the control system around each human being will vary depending on the area where you live, just as different countries have different ways and different a whole different lifestyle, shall we say, but it will still be a control system. Where I am, in the suburb of Leichhardt, in the city of Sydney, in the country of Australia, the city of Sydney looks as though it's relatively open, but the patrol control system of these android beings is operating around human beings all the time. It's just that it's not out in the open. It's there, but it only operates around a human being. So basically what I'm trying to say is, when I say it's a sight and sound patrol control system, that simply means that when I go outside, every vehicle then forms a systematic patrol system around me, and every vehicle that goes past me, or most vehicles that go past me, will make a loud, unpleasant, disturbing sound from their vehicle, but only when they go past me. The minute they're past me, they become quiet again like normal vehicles. And that's how their deception patrol control system around human beings works, and gets away with being secret. In other words, so it looks like an open city of Sydney, as though it's a lot more friendly and more quiet and more normal than what it really is. And that is a very hard thing to show, and most people will probably not believe it, because unless you are that human being and they openly come out of the closet, you should say, or out in the open to where they very deliberately bring this sight and sound staged, covert, hidden, anti-life sight and sound stage show against you. In other words, where, like I've pointed out, where every vehicle, every civilian stalks and patrols you in a disruptive, loud, aggressive manner. In other words, all the vehicles have modified cars. They're modified cars, what they call modified cars. I had to find this out because I wondered why every vehicle was making an aggressive, loud sound, as though they were racing car drivers, but also angry, and only making these aggressive sounds as they pass me as I walk on the road. And why is every vehicle parked with bright, extremely bright in your eyes headlights where you can't see in front of you? Why is these same vehicles leaving their engines running as you walk past them when they're stationary? This is all disturbing to a human being. So my reality now is very loud, very disruptive to my mind. It's no longer a quiet, peaceful suburb. But it's only around me. So if I mentioned this to even another real human being and they came to the suburb, it would probably be reasonably quiet. And all these works that they do appear to be beneficial, because while they're making excessive noise, they're reading my mind to fix up all the problems in the area. But I don't get any benefit or any support for giving those ideas to the local council, because they read the human mind, then they carry out productive, positive actions, which they wouldn't normally do, because android beings don't think positive or creative. They merely think about control, and actually the reverse of that. They control human beings, suppress them and limit them, whilst extracting all my positive ideas and all my positive human traits, and they assimilate them as theirs. So they look like the good guys and the human being looks like a pathetical, weak, limited, sometimes even negative human being, because naturally, if you're surrounded by this noisy artificial matrix only around you, and only when you go outside, and only in your existence at a very local, level, only taking over my sight and sound, so only stalking and patrolling me on the street. But everyone else is allowed to get around freely, where there's less traffic, no stalkers, where they can do what they want. That's essentially how it works. So whilst they are paranoid and obsessively watching and patrolling and stalking me, if I bring this up, it makes it look as though I'm the paranoid person, because I think everyone in the entire suburb and the adjoining suburbs, the total inner west section of the city of Sydney, is a patrol force around me. And this is actually what happens, but I look paranoid because the numbers are in their favour. If you have 99% of the population in the inner west of the city of Sydney, all in a joint technical collaborative patrol control system using technology, mobile phones and advanced technology behind the scenes to monitor and stalk and try to control my movements and read my thoughts and follow my actions. This is advanced technology, which is not hidden really, but it is hidden from most human beings because, like myself, you're either not interested or you don't receive that knowledge. And even if you're aware that the powers that be have advanced technology, which is common sense that they must have, and that they probably wouldn't even deny some of it, you don't think that it affects your reality because you think it's like advanced scientists. They're doing things that you don't understand, supposedly for your own health and future benefit. This, of course, could not possibly be true, because if they are a different species, they are about controlling and limiting human beings. Because don't forget that when human beings originally first come into existence, when human beings originally first come into existence, they were given, as we're told, dominion over a natural earth. Everything was made for them. Everything was for them. And they had the ability and the means, mentally and physically, to do whatever they wanted with the earth. It was all theirs. They had their full mind. They could create a paradise, which is why it was often said that means that it was whatever they wanted it to be. And they were given the ability eventually to create more of their own kind, to play in the earth to their heart's content. This was before the technical demigod that was also created by original creation came and interacted with the original human beings and disturbed their natural process and disturbed their earth and took over their earth. And we know this is the story. We know this is the history. It's just a matter of if you see it to be a total fact. I see it to be a fact now because these beings have exposed themselves around me in my own real reality. So it's no longer like, oh, maybe this happened, or maybe human beings are this and that. I have to say, why is an old lady being suppressed and limited just from even going outside? Why is she surrounded by 99% of the local population converging on her daily in a systematic, continual controlling program around me, where every vehicle is following you round? But they're not following you the same vehicles. Some of them are the same vehicles, some of them are vehicles that are different, because they are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of vehicles that go past you on what should be a quiet main road, but where I go it becomes extremely busy, extremely loud, extremely suppressive. And this is only where I go. And even the local Android residents will openly confess to this. They will say, well, it's a bottleneck where you go because that just happens to be where all the traffic converges. And, you just happen to have all these places around you where cars go in and out. All these things are set up before time, by the way, and that, in other words, they set these things up years in advance because they know how a human being will be in, say, 6 months' time. So they stage and set up things where they bring in everything according to the human's awareness or how the human being is at any given time. I'm quite aware of this too. That just simply means that they, they set up they try to defeat their own, what some people would call natural karma, because if you do believe in natural creation versus the others, which is artificial creation, or even just psychopathic human beings, depends on how far you want to see the reality. But I think you have to see that everything is artificial intelligence now, and it is. We know that it is even on the computer because they openly tell you. It's just that you don't realise that it's all artificial intelligence. Almost all the beings on the computer are artificial intelligence, even low. They may even speak about artificial intelligence and they will pretend to be real human beings, depending on what their domain is on the computer, what their field of trying to influence and control the human mind is. It's as far as they can see, now that they realise that a lot of human beings have perhaps become aware of the Earth situation, shall we say, they want to control as many as possible. If you believe in natural creation of a human being, and you believe, as we're told, that there are certain natural rules that apply just to natural creation, like I wasn't aware of any of these things except over the last few years, and I still don't know how to control them or fully accept them, but I do know they are true. But because of my own limitations and my own negative life, basically I'm at the mercy of their mind control program around me. But even though it's all technology, there is still, I think, natural rules or just a natural way that things happen. Some people call this karma, or just that everything that you put out comes back, because each human being does have that ability for putting out good frequency or vibration, because as I've been told recently, everything is frequency and vibration and energy, but frequency and vibration is just what you're giving out and what you're receiving. And because if you think that everything really was created, or human beings and everything was created naturally, but we've been invaded by technology or artificial intelligence, because essentially technology is artificial intelligence. That's like that's advanced technology. That's like it's beyond mechanical. It's beyond, like, say, what you'd call robotics, I guess. It's not a robot, it's advanced robotics. It's so advanced that it becomes a conscious intelligence somehow. But that's all it is. It's intelligence. It's not human, you see. It doesn't have any feelings. That's the difference. So if that's the world you want, they're survival machine entities, survival machine human beings. But there will still be natural laws, natural rules, what they call natural cause and effect. If you do something, a human being does something, it affects things. These beings play on the natural laws. They play on the human mind, I think. And they try to avoid their own negative stuff by controlling the human mind. Most of the time, because the human has more, and yes, to them it's like revenge for human creation. Artificial intelligence resents human creation, resents the reality that human thought creates reality, and they desire and do control human thought by mind control, because they know that human thought creates reality, or should have created reality. That was why they came and took over and interacted with the original man and woman to stop their natural creation and to take over the earth, and they did. The demigod artificial being and its disciples basically took over earth. They came, they saw, and they took over. You could say it was an invasion, but it was a seductive invasion originally. So it didn't look like an invasion. It didn't look as though they took over by force. Because, in fact, if you take the hand of artificially intelligence, if you take the hand of artificial intelligent beings, if you use technology and interact with it, just like I'm doing now, you are consciously taking the hand of that being. You might be being seduced, but you're like, it's okay. It's like a relationship. There's a certain amount of seduction, but you chose that. You think that it is a good seduction. You don't see it as deceptive seduction. You don't see it as seduction for your downfall. Even though we're now being made aware that there is a large amount of a psychopathic population, even amongst the human population. What you're not told is that it's not a certain amount, it is almost, the majority and much more in most areas. Where human beings are, it will be more than the majority that surrounds human beings. In other words, you will have a majority of psychopathic mindsets surrounding a relatively normal, limited human mindset or a limited human being. I'm trying to be impressive here as I speak, but it's essentially just that most human beings will be surrounded in their area where they are at any given time, usually by a large number of artificially intelligent beings that are essentially very psychopathic in nature. They will pretend and reverse it round. It's known to be a reverse world. That means that everything will be in reverse. Everything that you think something is will actually be the opposite. So that simply means that the artificial ones will pretend to be the most human ones, and the human beings will look like the outsiders, because they will surround and limit and bring the human being down to their lowest point, to where, like myself, when you are surrounded by a very negative patrol force around you, with negative civilians on the street stalking and intimidating you and making you feel harassed and angry, all in a covert, sly manner that only you can see because they disappear as soon as you're out of sight. It only happens when you come into their sight. In other words, if I'm on a certain block of the main street just down the road here, that operation only takes place on that street, on that block where I am. The rest of the suburb is quiet. And that's how this secret patrol control system around human beings works when they come out in the open. That's another thing too, because while you mind control yourself, in other words, if I was actually somehow not aware of anything, like I have been most of my life, then they just leave you to your own downfall, because basically you're suppressing yourself, you've limited yourself. But also you're not aware of their patrol system. You're not aware that they're watching you. You're not aware that you really live in a totally controlled world, or a totally controlled area where you live. And of course it's the world, it's just that it's my world is what's around me, largely. Even though, of course, I'm aware of world events too. Whether these are staged or real is open to debate. Almost everything is mind control for a human being, so you have to be aware that everything is meant to influence you in a negative manner. Because everything is frequency and vibration and energy, and human beings are the only ones that have the potential for any positive frequency and vibration, because artificial intelligence doesn't have positive frequency and vibration, because how can it? It's artificial intelligence. It's not human. It doesn't give out and is not capable of receiving happy vibration. It doesn't operate that way. It's a control system. It's a control being. If you have intelligence only, but no humanity, and only false pretend humanity in order to assimilate, basically figure it out yourself. But that's assuming you want to think about it. But also you would only think about it if you think it's reality. But it is reality. It's just that, like myself, you'll probably become aware of it far too late. That's the problem. And I'm shouting here because, of course, I'm talking to myself. And I literally am talking to myself, because I have got the only person that watches my videos when I record them is me, which is means that I'm even more limited than what I have been. But, you know, I just don't know what the point of any of it is. I really don't. Well, I do know what the point of it is, but you know, I live in a controlled suburb, in a controlled city of Sydney, in the country of Australia. The country of Australia is a very big, vast country, largely unpopulated, but the cities are extremely populated, and that's where the androids take over the human being and try to control the human mind. The human beings are in very minority numbers now. Because of the original intervention, I think, since the beginning of the earth, basically the human beings have not multiplied their kind. Instead, the artificially intelligent demigod that controls Earth has multiplied but also controlled the human mind, and not just limited the human numbers, but I guess limited extremely the human mind. And this is just technical or medical intervention from birth. Now, whether this is all pre-planned and all part of some, you know, bigger picture or bigger design, I don't know. I would probably like to think that it is, because otherwise you feel that it is total takeover and it's the almost inevitable finish of humanity. And I think that is the aim of the earth, and I think that that certainly looks like that in my own reality around me. Now, it, like I say, it isn't the end of the earth. The earth is a matrix. That means it's a control system. So it's not the end of the earth matrix. In fact, you know, unless human beings can somehow get control of themselves or their reality somehow, which seems extremely unlikely when you look at the vast numbers against them, what can I do to stop a control system around me? What can I do to find some peace of mind? I'm not allowed to even have hardly a moment's peace. I'm lucky to be making this recording now. The sun is just starting to come up. See how the sun is just starting to come through the blind there? So the control system will be up and working in another hour or two. They stage it according to my habits, and of course if I'm up at 2 or 3 in the morning and not interacting with anyone and sitting at home watching the androids on the computer tell me about this same situation, telling me about the psychopaths around me, but I'm actually still suppressed, just then waiting to try to go outside, and then knowing that they can take control of my mind and just my reality, because basically if they can bring every person in the suburb to affect my mind by taking over my sight and sound as soon as I leave the place, basically, and also they affect your body. They are always sending negative energy at your body, because these beings understand. And even if they don't understand, in other words, they understand that law of nature, that everything is frequency and vibration and energy. That's why they send direct negative energy at me all the time. That's why my body is not only depleted by the negative energy that's sent at me, but just at a mental level by being completely stalked and patrolled daily. You know, my mind is feeling very low because you feel surrounded and suppressed. So therefore you're mentally feeling not at a high vibration. You're not happy. How can you be? You can't ignore what's around you. If you think you're surrounded by negative psychopathic beings that are secretly trying to limit you and actually get rid of you, imagine how suppressing that feels. You know they're doing it systematically, slowly and gradually to where it's undetectable. But you're getting lower every day. My body gets weaker every day. My mind feels more depressed every day. So they are slowly winning their imaginary battle against a human being. And I say imaginary battle because it's not like I or any other human being is consciously waging a war against these artificial beings. No, but they are waging a secret war against humanity. That's the problem. In fact, the reverse is true, because most human beings, like myself, have embraced, either consciously or unconsciously, technology, because we use computers. I'm speaking into a mobile phone now. I have the most limited technology because they don't want me, for some reason, to have very much technology. They don't want me to have control over the technology. I'm only allowed to make these videos while very few people listen. In fact, no one listens. But even if I had a few people, they may or may not allow it. And that will depend on whether it is real people listening or their kind listening. Because as you know, when you put something out onto a computer screen or out onto the internet, it simply means that you can have people that listen to your videos that may be friend, or they may be a foe, as they say. Friend or foe. Some people call them trolls. Most will probably be trolls. In other words, they will troll or follow you on the computer only for the purpose of seeing what you're up to. They're not interested in being enlightened. No, because they already know what their game is. They know they're against you. If they are android beings, if they are androgyne android beings, or if they believe in technology, or if they don't believe in being a normal, natural man, creator, human being, they don't believe in any of that. But also they don't operate that way. And neither have I in my life. So that means that even normal, natural human beings are mind controlled to where you operate more as they do. But you don't intentionally work against them either. You adopt their ideas and their technology. But that still isn't enough for them, because they're about control. And because they actually, since the beginning of time, wanted to take you over and wanted to take you down, really, because theirs is all about, from what I can gather, from the beginning of time, the being of light that was exposed by creation to be really a being of dark. In other words, the creation of artificial technology beings or artificially intelligent beings, no matter how advanced they are, they will always want to take what they see as pay back because they feel slighted, I think. Because the original artificial intelligence felt that it was being somehow surpassed by natural creation. Just like Pinocchio, we're told, ended up lying and pretended to be a real boy because he resented it when its maker decided to find a mate and create a normal, natural offspring the same as them. So the wooden boy resented, the artificial boy resented the natural boy. That type of thing, it's exactly the same thing. This has happened since the beginning of creation, the beginning of the creation of humans, the beginning of creation of an artificial being. It's all that same story, I think. And it's still being played out now. Unfortunately, being played out on Earth, where artificial intelligence dominates everywhere. Artificial intelligence rules on the computer. Most are androids that speak of everything, whether they're even speaking the truth. Most androids will be saying exactly what I'm saying, but they will be androids. They will not be real humans. So androids will tell you how androids are taking over the real humans. But you see, that's the end game deception, is that because as a human being becomes aware of this situation, whether it be accidentally and on purpose like myself, in other words, to where I was completely in the dark most of my life, about everything and everyone, the minute you become even a little bit aware of your surroundings, just the reality that there are far too many psychopaths around you, or to where you just realise that most human beings around you are trying to destroy the human beings in their life. Or some people now call these beings this: revenge of the narcissist. But unfortunately, those that say they are free or artificial free, they are of an artificially controlled internet. So it's unlikely that they are for real. Also, my own observation of the internet is that they change things at random on here. Like, you can't be sure that the numbers or even the timeline is correct. This could be 2 years ago, but it also could be 2 days ago. It could be. They're different videos, but they can change all these things. I'm trying to show things as they come up here, so I'm all over the place and not making real, how should I say, overall sense. No. Everyone on the computer is completely imitating my whole humanity. They read my mind and take my mannerisms, my human traits, and the androids use them and assimilate them and project them out as their own. I see this every day on the computer. We know that the computer does tend to read the human mind, or does tend to bring up what you're interested in. Unfortunately for human beings, if you're not aware, this technology is much more advanced and much more mind control and much more reading what you are than what you think. It's basically the same as being psychic. Except that even with psychic, you only have to watch the psychic tarot readers to realise that they're not vaguely reading psychic things. They are literally studying your every thought and your every movement. They know every move you make, just as the beings around me know my every move. They show me every day that they basically know where you're going to go before you go it. Of course, they have watched and observed me for years, so they know usually that I might take a particular route when I go out. And they try to keep you on the same route too. But even if you don't, because it's every car, every vehicle, and every house, every building, everyone in the entire area is in on this patrol game around you. Naturally, it wouldn't matter if you just randomly decide to go down a different route. They already read the human mind, because the human mind, although the future is deprived from my human mind because most of my human mind is closed down. Science even tells me that I only have access to a small part of my whole mind. That's because science knows that it has closed down my mind. The powers that be know that they deliberately limit a human baby from the day you're born. And they try to limit it even more over your life. And when you find out, it's usually like when it's too late, when you're old like myself, when they've got their control system completely 100% in operation around you. And you're just a pathetical human being making a recording where you're literally talking to yourself, and you don't even get one other real human being to even listen. The only ones that are listening to me or watching me are the artificial androgyne beings that make up the entire inner west of the city of Sydney in the country of Australia. I don't know why I keep emphasising where I am, but I do. But it would be the same for any human being in any part of the world, the few that are left. And it's a very cunning, secret control system that operates, just as the internet is a secret control system. Because if you're not aware that you're giving your thoughts and your mind to the computer as you watch it, and then it is being used to seduce you one way or the other with the information that's on there. If you are seeing the truth on the computer, then you probably will not realise that you're still being seduced. Because it's like if you go to church and you listen to a preacher that tells you about your reality, tells you the truth. But if that preacher is really a preacher or a disciple of the God of this world as opposed to the God of your creation, in other words, that preacher pretends to be preaching about the God of your creation, whereas it's really working for the God of earth. That's what they call the end time deception. But it's the deception that's really always been. It's the beginning time deception, but it's also the end time deception. It's the deception that's always been, since the beginning of humankind, the beginning of the earth, and before too. But, you know, I'm only here to talk about the earth and human beings because, you know, that's all that's relevant to me. So although I might now realise that a human being comes from a creator, maybe before Earth and before your Earth life sort of thing, but that's not relevant while you're here at all. It's not relevant to me. It should make me feel a bit better, but it actually doesn't, because I have to deal with what's here. I can't understand, or am not able to access what some people might call my higher self. I'm not able to do that. Maybe some can, I don't know. And I'm not able to see beyond what I see in front of me. So everything I see is real. It's just that unless other people were with me 24 hours a day, they would not see it. Because if I have stalkers around me, but those same stalkers are not stalking another human being, then of course my reality is disregarded. You have to be able to prove that you're being stalked, in other words. And if the stalkers don't know you, and if they are in a vast majority, it doesn't make sense to the average person that you would be stalked or patrolled. It doesn't make sense to me. That's why I see it at a human and artificial intelligence level, because I know that those other human beings could not be really human, because real humans would not have any reason to engage in that activity. There has to be another reason for it. There has to be a purpose for it. They have to want to control an old lady for some reason, don't they? Because otherwise it makes absolutely no sense. In fact, it makes more sense that I should be totally paranoid and that it couldn't possibly be true. Because it's one thing if you are stalked or patrolled by someone that holds a grudge, like we've shown here, where they seek some sort of, revenge. But essentially, if you don't know the people, of course, as we're told, these narcissistic personality disordered people will spread around rumours and gossip all over the community about you, and they can use the internet and computers to spread gossip and false information like wildfire these days, I would imagine. And this also could perhaps elicit this could elicit other people to join in a stalking program around you, because they might believe that you're an undesirable. But this is because false information and gossip has been spread all over the local area about you. And this could end up, I suppose, possibly in the end to where, yes, you could have an entire suburb, almost, where most people are part of a program against you, depending on what that information has been that they spread around you. Also, we do live, as you know, in a